This guy is bullied by his classmates when he studies at medical school. After graduating and starting to work, he is also scorned by his colleagues. Yet, he has talent and becomes the head of the forensics department. Recently, a series of consecutive murders occur. Bodies are found decomposing in bathtubs at hotels or burned beyond recognition in apartment buildings. These difficult cases give the investigation team a headache. Only one key person in the team can help make these clues clear. That person is Fang Yijin. However, no one knows he has autism and a close relationship with a girl who often appears at the crime scenes. Let's start by looking at the investigation process of the case of a female singer, Su Koyun. This case also marks the beginning of the subsequent serial murders. The singer named Su is seen as a former diva, now retired, farming vegetables and raising ducks. But her case has a huge impact, causing a public uproar for a long time. The night of the murder, countless journalists and reporters surround the crime scene. The body of the diva is quickly taken out in a barrel. Besides finding bottles of decomposition solution, the criminal team finds no other clues related to the culprit. Upon return, they congratulate investigator Chen Quan, newly promoted for catching a murderer at the pool. However, for a meticulous person like Fang Yijin, he does not allow any mistakes in the evidence collection process. The whole team, leader to deputy, mocks him, calling him crazy. Everyone wants to solve the case and get promoted, so they convict recklessly despite the many ambiguities in the evidence. Unable to do anything else, Fang Yijin decides to review each clue by himself. He starts with the victim's belongings in Su Koyun's case to avoid any mistakes. The suitcase, shoes, handbag, ID card, and even a bathtub plug are scrutinized millimeter by millimeter. As a result, besides the fingerprints of the singer Su on the bathtub plug, there are also fingerprints of a teenage girl. The protagonist's face begins to darken. He does not record this information and decides to hide the evidence, because that child is his long-lost daughter. But calling it lost isn't quite right. Previously, Fang Yijin prioritized work over his family. His wife became disheartened, divorced him, and took their daughter away for a long time. After experiencing that shock, Fang Yijin began to suffer from autism. When he remembers his wife and daughter's painful past, his head feels like exploding. There is an ambitious journalist named Su Haiyin who has colluded with a corrupt investigator. She often helped him pay off gambling debts for confidential case information. This time she got the details of the diva's body decomposing in the bathtub. The investigator suspects she has been reckless. That night, Su Haiyin is determined to go to the crime scene, hoping to take more photos for her article, but the security at the scene refuses her entry. At this moment, Fang Yijin also rushes into the scene to collect more clues. Su Haiyin waits outside while Fang Yijin examines the bathtub. He discovers a needle under the drain. While waiting for the analysis results, he secretly looks at the juvenile crime records and finds information about his daughter. She was once arrested for assaulting an inebriated, defenseless person. Since her mother passed away, Xiaoming was sent to a reformatory. However, on the first night, she escaped and has been missing since then. Meanwhile, the investigation team discovers a camera at the scene capturing an image of a girl entering and leaving before the victim's death. Knowing this, Fang Yijin is more certain the case is linked to his daughter. Therefore, he has to hide any clues that might incriminate Xiaoming. Digging deeper into his daughter's assault case, he finds out the journalist is Su Haiyin. He contacts Su Haiyin directly to ask about the bar where the incident happened. She takes him to the bar but is then mercilessly dismissed by him. Alone in the VIP room, Fang Yijin questions all the hostesses about Xiaoming, but each of them shook their heads, saying they did not know the girl in the photo and had never heard of her name. However, Xiaoming had indeed worked there. For some reason, they lied, until the manager discovered this, and he immediately chased Fang Yijin out of the bar. When all hope seemed lost, a staff member who had been helped by Xiaoming found Fang Yijin and told him the truth. Previously, Xiaoming had a boyfriend named Cheng Hao, who also worked at the bar. But after a fight with a customer, Xiaoming was fired, and since then, no one has been able to contact her. Meanwhile, the ambitious reporter had hired someone to pick Fang Yijin's car lock and found the file on the diva's case. Through photos of the victim's body and her interactions with Su Koyun's mother while investigating the case, Su Haiyin discovered the crime scene was arranged exactly like the album cover photo at the singer's home. Su Koyun's mother also confirmed the victim's plans to release a new album and recent cosmetic surgery, so it was impossible for her to have committed suicide. Immediately, news of the suspicious death of the diva spread widely. This demonstrated the major crime unit's investigative incompetence. Captain Cheng Quan angrily scolded his subordinates for losing to a reporter and selling information. At that moment, Fang Yijin brought the body back for re-examination. The skull showed no signs of jaw reshaping or nose lifting. According to the analysis, it was the body of a man. The diva Su Koyun was actually still alive. The team immediately sent people to find her. At her home, they found her phone but did not have the password to use it. Fortunately, the investigation team located where she had just used her ATM card 2 hours ago at a department store. The investigation team immediately retrieved all the surveillance camera footage near the store. Indeed, the diva was still alive and was carrying a rather large bag. Following her to a small alley, they lost track because there were no surveillance cameras ahead. The investigation team asked a nearby resident, who directed them to an apartment building. Before the team could arrive, they received news that the building had caught fire. Fire trucks rushed to the scene to extinguish the flames. When the investigation team and the forensic team arrived, they found the fire had started from a charred body. From the items collected near the victim's body, they identified the burned person as Sun Chien, a stellar employee who used to work at the apartment building. However, during the autopsy, Fang Yizhen retrieved a nasal implant from the corpse. Based on the skeletal structure, it was suspected the body belonged to a girl. This seemed to be the most complex serial case to investigate so far. The murderer had been extremely careful. There were no fingerprints or clues left at either crime scene. At this point, the captain agreed to let Fang Yizhen join the investigation directly. However, Chen Quan hoped Fang Yizhen would make a mistake. Seizing the opportunity to remove this thorn in his side from the team, Su Haiyin met again with the informant investigator. Through the investigator, she learned they suspected the killer was the girl in the camera footage. Through the tattoo on the girl's arm, the reporter immediately recognized her as Xiaoming, the person Fang Yizhen was looking for. In an old interview, the girl had admitted that her father was a forensic scientist. Su Haiyin discovered their father-daughter relationship. The reporter then blackmailed Fang Yizhen into becoming her informant. If not, she would reveal his and his daughter's secret. Meanwhile, Fang Yizhen found a new clue about the charred body. There was no dust in the lungs, suggesting the victim was dead before the fire. Additionally, the dental structure matched that of the singer Su Koyun. Thus, this body was indeed hers. In the decomposed body case found in the bathtub, a large amount of anesthetic was found in the victim's stomach. The capsules had only been partially eroded by stomach acid. Surely the killer had timed the death before the body was destroyed. So, where was Sun Chien now? The police began to speculate that Sun Chien might be the killer but had no motive. No connection between them could be found. Furthermore, why would the killer be so blatant as to leave evidence at his workplace? The apartment building had no cameras, so no further investigation could be conducted. They began to search Sun Chien's house and found signs of a break-in. Neighbors confirmed that Sun Chien had been away for 2 days. However, the investigation team found a cancer medical record and treatment drugs at Sun Chien's father's house. However, his father was completely unaware of this. As all leads seemed to be at a dead end, both the newsroom and the police received a package from Sun Chien. The documents in the package accused his pharmaceutical company of employee exploitation and illegal dismissals. However, Su Haiyin's superior declined to expose the information due to the pharmaceutical company's importance as a client, but this package was very significant for the police. The police found the manager's footprints at Sun Chien's house. Additionally, a memory card found in Su Koyun's body contained attendance records and financial reports of the company. There was also a photo of the manager and messages threatening Sun Chien. They had enough grounds to call the manager in for questioning, but the police chief ordered his immediate release. It seemed that the company's influence extended to both the press and the police. While the investigation team felt helpless, the forensic team analyzed a crucial clue. They identified the decomposed body as Yu Chenghao. Through an anonymous tip, Su Haiyin also obtained this information. The reporter immediately remembered she had interviewed Yu Chenghao at a bar. After using deceitful tactics to approach Yu Chenghao's sister, Su Haiyin finally found out where Yu Chenghao lived. She immediately informed Fang Yizhen, and the two went there together. Sure enough, they found photos of the victim and Xiaoming together. However, in the photos, Yu Chenghao was dressed as a girl. It turned out that Yu Chenghao and Xiaoming were not lovers but best friends. Rejected by his family for his true gender, Yu Chenghao had disappeared. In death, he had been allowed to die as a woman. Through these two cases, the team understood the killer's motive. The killer aimed to fulfill the victim's dying wishes, such as helping Yu Chenghao become a girl or the disgraced singer wanting her new album to be well known. As for Sun Chien, he was an outstanding employee who helped the company sell many projects each year. But when he discovered he had cancer, the company forced him to resign. Additionally, they embezzled all the bonuses he deserved after many years of dedication. This made Sun Chien extremely resentful. He decided to use his death to expose the company's true face and bring them down. That night, Sun Chien was at the apartment complex. He distributed flyers tirelessly, protesting against the company's exploitation, embezzlement of wages and bonuses, and accusations of bribery. Due to the clever staging by the killer, the charred body was mistakenly identified as Sun Chien. An exploited employee returning to the company to commit suicide immediately attracted intense media attention. Eventually, the case became too big for anyone to defend the pharmaceutical company. At this point, Su Haiyin was allowed to publish the evidence Sun Chien had sent. However, her article maintained that the killer helped the victims fulfill their last wishes. As for the identity of the killer, it remained unknown. No one knew that Fang Yizhen was secretly protecting the killer. He had hidden all evidence related to his daughter. The next day, the police received a crime report from a mysterious girl. The girl even pointed out the location of the crime. The teams arrived quickly at the scene. The workshop owner was immediately questioned. Upon seeing the victim's photo, the workshop owner confirmed he had never seen them before. Fang Yizhen then requested to search the workshop owner's car. From tape residue in the trunk, Fang Yizhen found a strand of yellow dog hair. During the autopsy, besides a lung metastasis tumor, no other signs of cause of death were found. No fingerprints or feasible clues were found at the scene either. The workshop owner had a perfect alibi. Therefore, the police could not conclude anything at this point. Using her extensive network, Su Haiyin arranged to meet the workshop owner for an interview. Besides the woodworking business, he was also a famous and wealthy sculptor. Su Haiyin was invited to his private residence. Seizing the opportunity, she snuck into his office to gather evidence. There, apart from trophies and medals, there was nothing suspicious. She and Fang Yizhen decided to tail him to see what locations he frequently visited. Later, they discovered that this wealthy and polite man frequently visited a rundown wooden house on a hill. He received something from a destitute man and then left. Su Haiyin continued to follow the target in the car while Fang Yizhen broke into the house. Upon seeing him, a dog barked loudly. Unexpectedly, the owner of the dog not only looked tattered but was also blind in both eyes. At this point, the secret began to unravel. The blind man and the workshop owner were actually twin brothers. The sculptures made by the blind man had earned his younger brother a fortune. However, in contrast to his brother's wealth and glamour, the blind man lived in the shadow of having his sculpting talents exploited. Fortunately, this injustice was finally brought to light. Su Haiyin quickly provided the newspaper with all the information and photos of the workshop owner exploiting his blind brother for profit. When Fang Yizhen asked the blind man about his daughter's identity, he confirmed he had met the girl. He added that the girl was eager to meet Fang Yizhen again. This further made Fang Yizhen suspect that his daughter was the mastermind behind everything. He returned to the scene where Sun Qian's body was found and discovered a syringe in the yard. Beside it was a trail of melted candle wax. He then visited the scene of the decomposed body. He also found candle wax in the bathtub. Furthermore, the fingerprints on the syringe belonged to Sun Qian. Fang Yizhen concluded that they had all chosen their deaths. He recalled the days before his wife and daughter left. His daughter had repeatedly sneaked into his office to look at forensic files. One time, she read about a suicide case he was investigating and was extremely frightened. She asked her mother what suicide was. His wife explained to her that when people have too much sadness, they escape to a better place. What we can do is light a candle for them and tell them not to be afraid, that everything will be okay. Later, the girl did something foolish but fortunately survived. Back in the present, Fang Yizhen tried to convince Su Haiyin that all three cases were suicides. First was the decomposed body in the bathtub. At the scene, there were no traces of the culprit because Yu Qinghao wore gloves from the start and used Su Koyan's ID to check in. Yu Qinghao then staged the scene to resemble a music album cover and replaced the regular stopper with an acid-resistant one. He transferred the solution to a plastic bottle and placed it in the bathtub. Finally, he injected a large dose of anesthetic to ensure the body would sink and drown before it decomposed. That's why there was a needle under the bathtub stopper. As for Su Koyan's case, she had Sun Qian's card. She used it to sneak into the apartment and attached a fuse to her sleeve. After injecting the anesthetic, she waited for it to take effect, then poured gasoline on herself and lit the fuse. By the time she died, the fire had spread from the fuse to her clothes, engulfing her entire body. Sun Qian's case was similar. When the company's secret was revealed, he went to the workshop to end his life by injecting the anesthetic into his body. If so, it's very likely that after the blind man's wish was fulfilled, he too would choose to die. However, before that, Captain Chengquan discovered the mysterious girl at a rubber factory. They questioned a worker who had interacted with her. She was a special customer who asked him to cast an acid-resistant stopper. The captain recalled the bathtub stopper and retrieved it from Fang Yizhen. Indeed, when the article about the famous sculptor exploiting his blind twin brother for profit was published, the next day, the blind man suddenly disappeared. Captain Chengquan summoned the younger brother for questioning, but the workshop owner nonchalantly replied that his brother had legs and could go anywhere he wanted. He didn't understand what it meant to be brothers. He explained that their parents sold everything to treat the blind brother. During that time, he had to shoulder all the responsibilities. Now he sold his brother's sculptures to support him, so what was wrong with that? Indeed, the workshop owner struggled to make a living when he was young. He sold his paintings everywhere, but no one bought them. Fortunately, an Arts Council member once noticed a finely carved wooden sculpture. In an instant, the workshop owner claimed he was the creator of the piece. From then on, his life took a new turn. That same day, a woman named Peng Yiling found a white flower and a letter on a bridge near her home. The letter was written by her father's killer, Lu Kuan-yung. He didn't seek her forgiveness for his past mistakes. He only hoped that his death would soothe the pain he had caused her, so she wouldn't hate him anymore. After reading the letter, she saw a floating body under the bridge and immediately reported it to the police. Authorities did not investigate further and concluded it was Lu Kuan-yung's body. The motive could be as the letter said. He sought to repay the debt with his own life for Peng Yiling's father's death. 45 years ago, Lu Kuang-young was a cold-blooded robber. He kidnapped Peng's father, promising to release him after receiving the ransom, but ultimately, he betrayed them. After taking the money, Lu Kuang-young killed Peng's father to silence him. Besides Peng Yiling's father, he and his accomplices committed several daring crimes. However, he was only 17 at the time, so he was sentenced to prison. While the media was abuzz with news of a murderer escaping severe punishment at 17, he sacrificed himself at 56 to make amends with the victim's family. Forensic expert Fang Yijian observed that the injuries on the victim's arm matched those on the blind man's arm. According to the pattern, Lu Kuang-young is next, a former ruthless killer who had now become a target in need of protection. The police quickly investigated and went to Lu Kuang-young's home. They informed his wife that her husband was still alive and in danger. Their family's situation wasn't well off, but Lu Kuang-young's wife loved and worried about him very much. She knew very well about her husband's bloody past. But after his reformation, he had changed a lot. Contrary to the police's investigation, Yijian and Su Haiyin observed the restaurant owned by Peng Yiling. Sure enough, they found Lu Kuang-young there. He ordered food but didn't touch it. He spoke to the owner, implying that he wished her a happy and peaceful life. As soon as the owner turned away, Lu Kuang-young dropped all his money on the table and quickly left the restaurant. This act was like a final goodbye, compensating Peng Yiling's family. The two detectives immediately followed Lu Kuang-young, who boarded a bus and got off at a nearby subway station. Could he be planning to lie down on the tracks to be run over by a train? The thought of such a scene was chilling. However, before Lu Kuang-young could act, the police arrived. Lu Kuang-young's plan failed, and he was taken to the station for questioning. There, Lu Kuang-young confessed that there was no murderer from the beginning, all the victims had chosen their way out. Chen Quan thinks this matter is not that simple. He releases Lu Kuang-young to use him as bait. If the plan fails, the culprit will definitely come after Lu Kuang-young to silence him. That night, Chen Quan and some colleagues stay outside to observe. Inside, Lu Kuang-young is being tenderly cared for by his wife. She cooks him noodles that he couldn't have while in prison. It seems like peace will last forever. Suddenly, he receives a phone call and abruptly goes into his room. The bowl of noodles sits unfinished. His wife hears a loud noise and rushes to the door, banging and crying. Inside, Lu Kuang-young locks the door tightly to find a peaceful end. Fortunately, the police are nearby, so the effort to rush the victim to the hospital goes smoothly. Lu Kuang-young truly has great fortune, causing a murder without paying with his life. He is saved every time he attempts to die. Heaven's intention is that dying is not easy. Have you guys asked for my opinion yet? At this point, Chen Quan links Lu Kuang-young to the other victims. All had survived suicide attempts, brought to the hospital for emergency treatment, and ended up in the depression ward. Chen Quan concludes that the culprit targets people with depression who have suicidal tendencies. He suddenly feels uneasy about his own son, who also suffers from depression. After a traffic accident, his son's legs cannot walk normally. Due to his job, Chen Quan rarely has time to care for his son. As a result, their relationship gradually becomes distant. But now Chen Quan no longer gets angry when his son refuses to take his medicine. Instead, he encourages and motivates him not to give up. Returning to the hospital, Chen Quan plans to question Lu Kuang-young about the next victim. But then, Lu Kuang-young's agitation causes a heart attack, halting the chance for information. Meanwhile, Su Haiyin learns her mother borrowed a large sum of money. She rushes home and discovers the owner is about to sell the house. Unwilling to leave, her mother borrowed money to buy it back. She strongly opposes because this place only holds bad memories. Her father, after business failure, tried to commit suicide with the whole family. Luckily, she and her mother escaped that fate and have lived in peace until now. Yet all these years, her mother still clings to this house to remember that wretched father. At this moment, Chen Quan spots a suspicious detail in the serial murder case. The victims were all anesthetized with a special compound before they died. It's tightly controlled by the state and not widely available. Who on earth assisted the perpetrator, or is the perpetrator someone in the industry? The suspicion grows clearer. A faceless girl carrying a syringe enters Lu Kuang-young's room. Shortly after, Lu Kuang-young's death in the hospital causes great concern among the police and doctors. The emergency team fails, and Chen Quan can only look at the corpse helplessly. Even in the hospital, he couldn't escape. The safest place turns out to be the most dangerous. As in previous cases, the autopsy shows that Lu Kuang-young's body has anesthesia and bruises on the neck. However, the bruises were faked to mislead the police. What really took his life was the anesthetic fluid from the hospital's bag. The hospital is quickly sealed off for investigation. Meanwhile, Yijian is watching the clip repeatedly. He suspects that the tattoo on the girl must have some significance. With his skills and the help of his colleagues, he finally finds the tattoo artist. Su Haiyin is also present, interested in the matter. Sure enough, the tattoo artist confirms that Xiaoming's hand tattoo was self-done. The reason she got the tattoo was because she had a very ugly scar on her hand, which greatly impacted her interactions at the nightclub. Therefore, she used a beautiful and meaningful image to cover up the ugliness. That night, Lu Kuang-young's body suddenly disappears. The news leaves the entire police station dumbfounded. In tough economic times, even bodies are stolen, which is scary enough. Notably, the perpetrator is incredibly meticulous, leaving no fingerprints. The police ask for secrecy regarding this matter to avoid public panic. Only Su Hyein, the journalist, knows this information. Instead of reporting for a reward, she follows Yi-Jen to monitor Lu Kuan-Yun's wife, who goes out alone at night, destination unknown. Unexpectedly, she goes to meet Peng Yi-Ling to apologize. The unfortunate incident my husband caused 45 years ago must have caused you great pain. I apologize on behalf of my husband. Peng Yi-Ling is not very interested in Lu Kuan-Yun's wife's apology. Apologies won't bring the dead back to life. However, she also advises Lu Kuan-Yun's wife not to grieve over a worthless person. Lu Kuan-Yun's foolish actions only show that he is a selfish person. After surveillance, Su Hyein shows Fang Yi-Jen Lu Kuan-Yun's contacts. They narrow down a few people who frequently contacted him on the day Lu Kuan-Yun died. After investigation, they discover the phone number was dialed from a nursing home. This explains the suspicion that has puzzled Yi-Jen for days. Previously, before leaving Peng Yi-Ling's restaurant, he saw Lu Kuan-Yun put money on the table and then suddenly take back a few coins. When his plan failed and he was taken to the emergency room, he searched Lu Kuan-Yun's clothes and found 2 coins. That money was enough for an additional bus ride of 16 kilometers. Lu Kuan-Yun was likely planning to use that money to travel to the next place to fulfill his intention. Coincidentally, the nursing home is also 16 kilometers from the bus stop. They immediately go there and see the area has been cordoned off. A murder has occurred. The body is Lu Kuan-Yun's, but the name tag on his wrist says Cho Yang. Cho Yang used to be a teacher, but after his whole family died in a trip, he was the only survivor. With no one to care for him, he was sent to the nursing home. Cho Yang notably passed away 3 years ago from kidney disease. Su Hyein recalls this nursing home's history of elder mistreatment reports, admitting too many patients and having poor facilities. Among these complaints is one sent by Cho Yang 3 years ago. However, at that time, the editorial office was sponsored by the nursing home, so they covered it up. Meanwhile, the investigation team struggles due to the uncooperative building manager. According to the autopsy, the forensic team finds the body was dropped from a great height. The nursing home has a total of 10 floors. But legally, the nursing home is registered as only 6 floors. The other 4 floors have been illegally constructed. This case seems quite similar to Sun Qian's previous complaint. The reporter and protagonist sneak into the nursing home to investigate. When they reach the 10th floor, they see a long-haired janitor leaving a room. Yi-Jen's intuition tells him that this person needs to be followed. After they tail the janitor, Captain Quan leads the team to inspect the scene. Upon reaching the 10th floor, everyone almost retched at the smell of moldy pickles emanating from the room. Many elderly people are living in extremely unhygienic conditions. This time, the manager still arrogantly thinks that his connections can cover everything. However, Quan ignores this, arrests him, and brings all the evidence to the agency. Following the janitor to the hospital where Lu Kuan-Yun and the victims were treated, the two suddenly lose track of her. Instead, the TV is broadcasting a video featuring all the victims who have died recently. The content includes the most heartfelt words of the deceased. Each person is expressing their wishes, things they couldn't accomplish while alive. Some want to be remembered forever for their image and voice. Some want to escape the shadow of their twin sibling to show their talent. Some wish to live authentically, rejected by their parents for their gender. The statement, "Why did we have a child like this?" from their parents made them feel like they shouldn't exist in this world. Finally, the key target of the case, Xiaoming. She expresses that everyone in the video is helping each other fulfill their final wishes. Xiaoming herself feels that if her and her mother's wishes are fulfilled, she will pass away peacefully. Once again, the police are in a whirlwind of confusion. The station divides into teams to find the video source and investigate the patient's psychological treatment. The hospital's video shows that these people were all treated together. Only one girl named Li Yijun has not appeared. She was Cho Yang's girlfriend. She has been involved in many anti-euthanasia groups and is the most mysterious. While investigating the name Xiaoming, Quan uncovers Fang Yijian's long-hidden secret. The police immediately search for Fang Yijian, but he has disappeared. At this point, the protagonist arrives at Li Yijun's house. He finds it filled with chemicals. On the table, there is a file on the cases he has investigated. He immediately hides it before the police can find it. When Quan arrives, all he finds is a plant pot labeled "My Mother's Final Wish." They continue to search Yijian's house but find nothing. Quan grows furious, suspecting someone has been secretly protecting the autistic forensic scientist. Meanwhile, they accidentally notice a corrupt policeman acting suspiciously. He receives a phone call but hesitates to answer. Moments later, he disappears. Su Hyein arranged a meeting to extract information. After Su Hyein leaves, her journalist colleague continues to threaten him. In the end, he reveals all the confidential information about the case. It's said that Fang Yijian's wife died from a vicious cancer. Fang Yijian goes to the hospital to ask the doctor who treated his wife. He learns his wife was in the terminal stage of cancer. After each nightclub visit, Xiaoming rushed to the hospital to see her mother. Until one day, his wife decided to stop treatment. She had a wish to go somewhere before she died. But Xiaoming didn't agree. She wanted her mother to continue treatment. In the end, her mother passed away without fulfilling her final wish. After failing to locate Fang Yijin, the police start issuing a nationwide manhunt for him. Upon seeing the news, someone at the hospital calls the police. In no time, the entire hospital is surrounded. Fang Yijin fears that if he hesitates, he won't find his daughter in time, so he entrusts his daughter's safety to Su Haiyin. He begs, "Please, save my daughter." After saying this, he rushes out, sacrificing himself for Su Haiyin. Everyone involved has been arrested except for the two girls, Li Yijun and Xiaoming. The government decides to offer a substantial reward for their capture. Unexpectedly, Li Yijun suddenly arrives at the police station and voluntarily surrenders. However, her only purpose in doing so is to meet Fang Yijin. She wants to relay that Xiaoming's daughter is suffering greatly. Witnessing the girl nearly exhausted, Li Yijun encourages her that she has the right to end her mother's life to free her from suffering. The girl visited the lab to find him, but he was too absorbed in his work to notice that his daughter was desperately hoping for his attention. That visit determined Xiaoming's subsequent actions. She chose to remove the life support, freeing her mother from physical and mental pain. The recent cases were all orchestrated by Xiaoming to attract attention. She hoped to use this to fulfill her and her mother's final wishes. Seeing the pot with a green sapling engraved with "My mother's final wish," Yijin believes he knows where the girl is. In a fit of anger in the past, he had harshly scolded his wife, causing her to leave with Xiaoming. But standing on the rock, listening to the sea, they calmed down and promised to face all challenges together. At this moment, Xiaoming is standing on that very rock, holding her mother's urn. The police take Fang Yijin to the location to let him speak with his daughter. Back then, Fang Yijin was too young, and his autism caused him to lose control. He hoped marriage would help, but it only brought suffering to his wife and child. When Xiaoming was burned by the chemicals, he worried only about its impact on his work, neglecting his daughter's injury. He left his wife to struggle alone, taking their daughter to the hospital. Seeing his wife and child suffer, he decided to divorce them for their happiness. He never imagined that choice would make things worse. Yijin reaches out, hoping his daughter will change her mind, but she coldly responds, "Thank you, Dad, for giving me life. Now I will return it to you." Holding her mother's urn, she closes her eyes and jumps off the cliff. This is the only way she can escape from the haunting past. The only thing Yijin can do as a father at this moment is to risk his life and jump after her. The outcome is unexpected. Both father and daughter are saved in time. Yijin is in the hospital for treatment, while Xiaoming is in a mental institution for depression. At the police station, Quan starts interrogating the mastermind. She believes she is an angel helping people create meaningful deaths, but Lu Kuangyang no longer wants to die. Yet she managed to sneak into the hospital and force him to die. Despite all her reasons, Li Yijun's actions are still wrong. Now, she must pay the price for her criminal actions. While imprisoned, she is visited by Su Haiyin, who has heard the stories of other victims. Now she wants to hear Li Yijun's story. What exactly turned a seemingly delicate girl into someone so ruthless? A few years ago, Li Yijun was a provincial girl who came here to live. She got married but was abused by her husband for a long time. Eventually, she put her aging husband in a nursing home. She was then hired illegally by the management. Later, due to her experience, she was also hired as a janitor in other hospitals. Until one day, she met Zhou Yang on the 10th floor of the nursing home. He was different from the others. He often cared for the elderly. Zhou Yang was discontented seeing people neglected, left to hunger and thirst. Moreover, he frequently showed concern and visited her. From then on, she admired and loved him. Until one day, she saw Zhou Yang taking desperate measures to seek justice for the patients there. He feared that one day he might suddenly pass away without fulfilling his wishes. Li Yijun decided to fulfill Zhou Yang's wish. She gathered medications from other patients, including Viagra, and gave them to Zhou Yang. As a result, he developed kidney disease and died. She then approached places that treated depression and anti-suicide to recruit like-minded individuals. She formed a group like the one in the movie you watched. Lu Kuangyang's wife just discovered she was pregnant. If he had lived, he would have awaited the birth of his child, and the family would have lived happily together forever. If Yu Chenghao had lived and known he had his sister's support, he might have found the courage to wait for societal acceptance of his gender. If Sun Qian had lived, he could have taken care of his father for a bit longer before he succumbed to cancer. If only the blind man could have let go of his insecurities caused by societal judgments, and let go of his resentment and jealousy towards his brother, he might have shined with his talent. At the peak of her career, Su Koyun had an abortion. After losing everything, she always felt guilty about it, so she sponsored children with special circumstances. Although fame is gone, she still has her elderly mother and loving children. Furthermore, if Zhou Yang were still alive, Li Yijun wouldn't be here. After everything, Fang Yijin was supposed to face charges for fabricating evidence, but thanks to Chen Quan's help, his charges were significantly reduced. He was expelled, while Su Haiyin faces sabotage from colleagues. Her colleagues, using their connections with high-ranking officials, bribed higher-ups to publish articles about Li Yijun's case. Despite losing the chance for promotion, Su Haiyin realized her priorities. She overcame her past trauma and decided to buy back the commemorative house for her mother to enjoy her old age. Chen Quan gave the corrupt cop a large sum of money to pay off his debts, freeing him from being beholden to journalists. 2 years later, Yi Jin was offered a position as a lecturer in forensic medicine at a university by Chen Quan. After finishing his lecture, he left the classroom. At that moment, Chen Quan approached him for help with a case with many suspicions. However, he accepted it and set it aside because he had something more important to do. Yi Jin stood in front of the juvenile detention center with a very anxious look. It was pouring rain, covering the entire road. Xiaoming stepped out of the center with an umbrella. It was the moment her mother had been waiting for. If in the afterlife, she saw her father and daughter living happily, her mother would surely feel content and rest in peace. This series comes to an end here. We wish you all good health to support our team. Thank you very much, and see you in future series. Now, goodbye, and see you next time.